Quite a while, yeah. I've done a couple of little online things in the comfort of my own home, which are a lot easier. And then it's strange being back on stage again. All my fingers turn to thumbs.
Yeah. I know it's well, we're all in the same boat, really. To be honest, it's the first show that we've done since March, and you are, if you like, the the first candidate in our new sort of like format of running sound check for solos under pandemic sort of and plague circumstances.
The guinea pig.
The guinea pig, yeah. But what I wanted to start talking to you about was more to. Oh, and by the way, great set. Really love the songs.
Oh,
by the way,
thank you.
I mean, the ones that stood out for me were The Whistle. Really like that song, and that final one, Sometimes. Really loved that.
Oh, thank you.
But you talk about on your website that you describe yourself as gothic folk, and you make references to black country rock, which I guess links back to where you came from, which is in the West Midlands.
Yes, yeah, black country born and bred.
Yeah, and now you're living in the Bristol area.
Yeah,
and have been for 7 years. I think
getting on for 7 years now.
Yeah. So. The stuff that you play now, it has links and connections back to that tradition from the Black Country.
Yes, because I've come from a rock, metal and goth background. But obviously when I moved down here, a lot of the musicians that I worked with were still in the Midlands.
Yeah. So let's kind of like just backtrack for other people a minute. Let's go back kind of like 10 years or so-ish. You were playing in a band, I think, back in those days called Abigail's Mercy.
Yes, that's where the name Steve Mercy comes from. It's kind of akin to the Ramones.
Yeah.
It was Steve Mercy, Johnny Mercy, Mark Mercy.
Oh, right, okay. Everybody was Mercy.
It was a nickname, basically.
Yeah.
And due to there being a significantly more famous Steve Gibbons that's been going since the 60s, it always caused confusion. So it
best
was
to avoid
best
those lawsuits.
Yeah. So.
And Abigail's Mercy were a kind of quite a heavy sort of rock, sort of metalish sound.
Yeah, gothic metal, male and female vocal, alternating lead vocals.
And then after that, then you played with Al Atkins, who people may remember as being the one of the founders and lead singer in Judas Priest.
Yes.
In his band, Holy Rage.
Yes.
That was about 2010, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 2010. That album came out. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, the sound on that album probably a little bit more traditional rock than the sound from Abigail's Mercy.
Yeah, a lot more in the vein of Judas Priest with the twin guitar attack.
Yeah. And then interestingly, I've seen that you've been playing as a session musician on a bunch of other projects. One of them, I'm going to get the name wrong again. Cauda Pavonis.
Oh, Cauda Pavonis. I play bass in that band.
Yeah. And that's an interesting sound. It sort of feels to me like sort of a mixture of X-Ray Specs meets the Stranglers with a bit of sort of gothic theatre sort of chucked in for good measure.
Yeah, very much gothic theatre, yes.
Yeah, certainly in the lyrics anyway.
Yeah, I only joined them a couple of years back. I've recorded one album with them.
Yeah, that's Aces and Eight. Yeah. And you've also played on Louise Patricia Crane's album.
Yes,
album
that came
Deep
out last
Blue.
month. Yeah.
And that was bass again, was it?
Yes, on 2 songs, yeah.
Yeah. So your rock background has been predominantly in playing bass guitar.
Yes. Due to necessity, really. I started doing there was a run of Abigail's Mercy concerts that I couldn't do. So I offered to do them as solo acoustic concerts rather than cancelling the gigs.
Yeah.
And that's what started it, really.
Okay. So there you are in the West Midlands with this sort of back catalogue almost of heavy rock. And now you're back down in, you moved down to the West Country and you've gone acoustic, picking up on those, gigs where you needed to do something sort of different.
Yeah. I mean, the song I opened with, Summerland, that was on the second Abigail's Mercy album.
Right.
and it's a much different version.
Yeah, and some of the songs that you played tonight were on your solo album Sketches. Is
Yes,
that right?
yes,
Yeah.
the majority actually.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a new one. I think you played second.
Yeah, that was a brand new one. That's going to be on the next album.
Yeah.
When I get around to recording that.
So, picking up again on the Gothic folk, then you're bringing those influences from playing in those kind of darker bands, rock bands, sort of bigger sort of sound, into your sort of solo performances that you're doing now acoustically. And would you say it's kind of coming in through the lyrics more than...
Most definitely, yes. My lyrics do. I do write light-hearted songs. I didn't put any in the set list tonight. More sort of like what I call throwaway fun songs. But I much prefer to write songs that come from the heart and real life experiences.
Yeah.
There's a couple of songs in there that are dedicated to former band members that are no longer with us, and relationships and breakup songs and that kind of.
Yeah, you probably need to keep the mic a little bit closer to you, or else we'll lose you. I mean, I was, going back to the songs that you played this evening. Yeah, there were a couple that you dedicated to people that have passed. But there was also almost like an out-and-out country song in there somewhere. Yeah. The dogs died and...
Yeah, I thought I'd better throw one like that in there.
Yeah. And on your Facebook page, you talk about Johnny Cash being a kind of like an influence on your sound.
Very much so.
Yeah. So is that, do you think in the song style or in your singing?
From the, I would say the writing style. I mean, no one sounds like Johnny.
No.
But the writing style, there are a couple of songs that I haven't played tonight, but it's that the freight train.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's definitely an influence.
It's kind of like a wide kind of spectrum, isn't it? Sort of from Johnny Cash through to The Mission and Sisters of Mercy and
yeah.
with Judas
Most
Priest
definitely.
and the sort of outright Ozzy Osbourne heavy metal chucked in for good measure.
Yeah, well, it pays to be eclectic.
Yeah, indeed. I was listening to an interview with Al Atkins when he was talking about Holy Rage.
Yeah.
And when Holy Rage sort of came together. And he mentioned you in it, and I don't know if you've heard this interview.
I haven't actually, no.
It was on, I think it must have been for an American radio show. Basically, he said that you were playing in Abigail's Mercy, and you basically insisted on joining Holy Rage. And he kind of like thought about it and said, yeah. And they had to misplace or replace somebody who was already involved to bring you in. Is that fair?
Not strictly true, no. That's a new one on me. No, I was asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he said that you'd been sort of like playing sort of with them in the studio, I think it was, and they just got around to realising it was a better fit than what they had before and had to go for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I was standing... I think I may have been standing in for Scott, the initial bass player.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't recall any conversation where I insisted on joining. It was, I think it was a mutual agreement. Yeah, it was actually outside the fire exit of. There was a club in Dudley called JB's that had been going for knocking on for 50 years in the end, which is where like U2, the Police, Susie and the Banshees, Sex Pistols, bands like that had all started out there. And we were playing a metal festival there. Abigail's Mercy were on the same bill as Holy Rage, and I think Blaze Bailey, who had sang for Iron Maiden, was headlining, or because we did a couple of them. I think it may have been Saxon that were headlining, actually.
Yeah.
And we were chatting outside the...
Yeah. How big a place was this? Because these are huge names.
I think it held 1,000, 1,500.
Oh, so it was a decent-sized sort of place, yeah.
And the conversation sort of went, oh, you're the new bass player. Oh, okay. But sadly, that only lasted one album.
Earlier, when we were just sort of chit-chatting before we started the show, I stupidly just said, what's the furthest you've ever had to go for a gig? And you just said, oh, New York. What's that story?
There's a band from Nottingham called New Generation Superstars that I've been friends with for years, and they needed a bass player for a UK tour. Their bass player was unable to do it, so I stepped in for that. And then the following year there was another tour that he couldn't do, so I stepped in for that.
Right.
It was a UK tour with an American band called Love Hate, and Ricky Warwick, that after that tour went on to be the new singer in Thin Lizzy.
Right.
And then I got a phone call. Oh, Tony can't do a gig. Are you up for it? Yeah. Let me know where, when. New York, Halloween. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm available. I haven't checked if I'm available, but I'm available.
Yeah, we can manage that one.
Yeah.
So an interesting experience then, I should imagine, of kind of, it's a dream, isn't it? Rock band on tour, even though it's only one gig, in New York.
Yeah, it was superb.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were all knackered, we made the mistake of deciding that we wanted to see as much of New York as possible. So we left the hotel at 7:30 in the morning and walked the length of Manhattan.
Oh, we've
to
done
get
that.
to the Statue
It's
of Liberty.
a long way, isn't it?
Night time.
Yeah. I think we when we did it, we walked all the way down to the end of Manhattan, and it was so far that we definitely took the tube back. It was just it was much further than I thought it was going to be.
And then we walked the same distance, the opposite direction the following night, because it was the Halloween parade.
Right. Yeah.
Which was super. Well, now I'll tell a lie. We made it about halfway, and then said, "Okay, we'll get the subway the rest of the way, and go to the pub instead."
Yeah, I think that. I hadn't actually clocked how big places like Central Park are.
Oh,
massive, huge.
Yeah, seeing it up close, it was certainly an eye opener.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, let's come back to the music. So you brought out an album towards the beginning of last year, Sketches.
Yeah.
Which people can get hold of via your Facebook page. And the plan, presumably, is once the world has stopped going crazy, is to start getting another album together of the newer material.
Most definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? Sometime sort of towards the end of the year or something?
I would hope so, yes. Yeah.
And the tone of that album is it going in any other sort of direction, or have we picked up the tone on tonight's set?
No, because a lot of this set was on the previous album. I do want more light-hearted songs on there as well. It's only when I sit down and I'll listen back to some recordings. It's very rare I listen back to live stuff because of missed frets and fingers in the wrong place, and I always end up cringing all the way through it and thinking, "Oh no, destroy that." But a lot of stuff has happened over the last few years, which has led to the songs being quite dark.
Yeah.
So I do definitely want to
be a bit more cheerful,
take a more light-hearted approach. So it is more like a folk album with elements of country in there.
Yeah.
And more foot-tapping kind of thing.
Before we close, I just want to go back, actually, because it's something that you said when you were playing about the track The Whistle. Yeah. That you were commissioned to do that. I think you said you were asked to do that, to compose that.
Yes, there was an evening called Requiem. Mm-hmm. In a cafe bar in Keynsham, directly in between Bath and Bristol.
Yeah.
And Rick, the organiser of that, he organises the Keynsham Music Festival, had asked various singers, songwriters, poets to come along on this evening, but he'd asked if they would do bespoke things. It was for the centenary of the end of World War I.
Yeah.
And he said, "I want you to do 3 songs, but I want you to write them." Okay, no pressure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's not as though it's, a throwaway occasion that no one will, no one will be looking at in the future.
Yeah, but I did the 3 songs, 2 of which are on the Sketches album, the Whistle.
Yeah.
And a much lighter one called Going Home. The Whistle is obviously about the ones that never made it home. and Going Home is about the ones that did.
Mm.
And there was a third song, which I did with a friend of mine, that she does a lot of wartime concerts. She
Really?
goes out as Blitztime Sally
Oh,
and sings all
yeah.
the wartime stuff.
Yeah.
So there was a song that we did together,
Yeah.
but the logistics of it, I couldn't get that one on the album.
Mm. Oh, I thought that was a great song. Really loved it.
Oh, thank you.
And I mean, again, a lot of people, like such as myself, look to the war poets for some kind of insight into what that time was like, because really that's all we have now.
Yeah.
Is just to have the words to try and remind us of what happened and why we must not go there again.
Oh, and it was sort of doing the research to write the songs, reading up on stuff, a lot of stuff that I hadn't previously known. It was, you realise the true horror of
Well,
these things.
let's not end on too much of a dark sort of theme. So you're back into the home studio. I think you're putting your home studio together.
Yeah. I've already recorded a couple of things already,
Yeah.
and that they are light.
Yeah.
They're actually about COVID-19, so they probably won't
Oh,
go
yeah.
on the album because
One of the most jokey things going.
obviously songs like that will date. So
I don't know. I suppose it's a point of time in history.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
you know, for a long time, people will be talking about what happened over this 6 months.
oh, it's definitely going in the history books, isn't it? It's it's very strange.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for doing a brilliant set. Really
Thank
enjoyed
you very
it.
much for inviting me.
You've been watching Soundcheck from Visual Radio Arts, and on today's show we've had Steve Mercy. Thanks, Steve, again for
Thank you.
doing a great set. Our next show is on the 25th of July with the fantastic Louis Miller. Normally she plays with the band, but this time round it's going to be just solo. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back.